The other day I was sitting in my living room, and my wife came back from a late night at the bar. Who'd she walk in with? Her boyfriend, of course. And that's when I asked, "Hey baby, even though I'm your husband and we've been married for 10 years, am I one of your top 10 boyfriends of all time?" She was too drunk to answer me, of course, so her boyfriend took her to her room. They were in there for about 30 minutes, and then I got a FaceTime call from him. I answered, of course, like the good boy I am. And that's when my wife proceeded to name 10 boyfriends she liked more than me. And she said I was number 11 though, but number 11, that's pretty good. Imagine being the 11th best player in the NFL. So with that being said, I started thinking, what was the top 10 players in the NFL for the 2025 to 2026 season? And that's what this video is about. Wait! If you don't want to have 27 sexual assault allegations like Deshaun Watson, like, comment, subscribe, and let's get in this video. First off, I made several of these videos. Go watch them throughout the season. I made top 10 players going into the 2025 season. I made top 10 players in the middle of the season, and now I'm making top 10 players after the season. Go watch those videos. Links will be in the bio. Let's get into it. Number 10, Christian McCaffrey. This guy just plays the game the right way. He's gritty. He's a hard worker. He's the type of guy you would really like to date your daughter. And amongst that, he's one of the 2 best running backs in the NFL. He's one of the greatest running backs of all time. He's a future Hall of Famer. He was about 80 yards away from becoming the first running back to have 1,000 yards receiving and 1,000 yards rushing for the second time in his career. He narrowly lost Offensive Player of the Year to Jackson Smith-Njigba. He was the whole 49ers offense since they dealt with so much injuries. He made first team All-Pro, and you could really argue he was the best running back in football this year. He had 1,202 yards on 311 attempts, 10 touchdowns, 924 yards, and 7 receiving touchdowns. He also had over 100 receptions, the 3rd time in his career he had 100 receptions in a season. He placed 4th in MVP, he won Comeback Player of the Year, and has all around been one of the best running backs in football for the last almost decade now. Like I said, he's a future Hall of Famer. They don't make him like Christian McCaffrey. He really revolutionized what it means to be a running back in the modern NFL. And if you consider he was the offense for the San Francisco 49ers and he almost carried this team to a 12+ win season, you see why he's up on this list. So number 10, Christian McCaffrey. Number 9, Drake the Schedule Man. I made a YouTube short about why this dude would choke. And guess what? He fucking choked. The Patriots don't deserve a Super Bowl. A nuclear bomb should be dropped on Foxborough, and I truthfully hope the New England Patriots never win a Super Bowl again. Except this year, because they're playing the team that shall not be named for right now. But anywho, with that being said, if I take my bias aside, if we're going strictly off stats, if we're going strictly off what they did this season, Drake May was a top 10 player this year. His schedule might have looked like a Paralympic schedule, but with that being said, his stats were really good this year. He was very efficient. It's the best quarterback play the Patriots really ever had since Tom Brady, but Drake May didn't cheat like Tom Brady, so really he's the greatest Patriots quarterback of all time. In 2025, he led the Patriots to a 14-3 record. He had a 72% completion percentage, 4,394 yards, 31 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, averaged 8.9 yards a attempt, had a quarterback rating of 113.5, QBR of 77.1, averaged 7.7 net yards attempt, averaged 8.26 adjusted net yards an attempt, and was 2nd team All-Pro and placed 2nd in MVP. Great year all around, but when you're going up against a bunch of coughing babies and you have the Czar bomb, it's not that hard to win. For instance, they played 2 playoff teams in their last 12 games, my nigga. This Patriots team was good, but if they had a normal schedule, they're winning about 10 games. And also, fuck the Patriots, I hate them. Most spoiled fan base ever. Went through 4 years of hardship, and now you feel like you guys got out the gutter. I hope every Patriots fan gets slimed out this weekend. Number 8, Bijan Robinson. Personally, if I'm being objective, this is probably the best running back in the league, mainly because he averaged more yards per carry than Christian McCaffrey and might not be the better receiving back, but when it comes to all-purpose yards, he had more of them. He didn't have the complete carry job that Christian McCaffrey had, if we're just going based off stats, if we're going based off accolades, if we're going based off who you have to game plan more, probably Bijan Robinson by a slight edge, just because he's on the Atlanta Falcons team. This year, Bijan Robinson had 1,478 yards on 287 attempts, averaged 5.1 yards an attempt, 86.9 yards a game, had 79 receptions, 820 yards, 4 receiving touchdowns, and had 2,298 yards from scrimmage, leading the league. He was a 1st team All-Pro, and he placed 4th in Offensive Player of the Year. Like I said, he was the best back in football all year. He averaged almost 2 more yards per carry than Christian McCaffrey, and he only had 100 less yards on 30 less receptions. He was just more productive in the smaller sample size he got, so I have to give him the edge. Number 7, Penei Sewell. Penei Sewell is probably the best offensive lineman in football. He made his 3rd consecutive 1st team All-Pro after even placing an Offensive Player of the Year voting last year. He led one of the best offensive lines in football, playing 16 games, and if you value trench dominance, if you value tackle dominance, you'll understand why he's number 7. He had a 95.2 overall Pro Football Focus grade. That was number 1 amongst all offensive linemen. He had a 96.8 run blocking grade, best in the NFL and amongst the highest ever for a tackle, He only allowed pressures on just 3.3% of pass plays and allowed 19 total pressures all season. That's the lowest amongst qualified tackles. And I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to sit here and act like I watch every offensive line rep. And I was an offensive lineman, but who the fuck has time to do that shit? Not me. But he's had multiple seasons above 90 plus run blocking grade. He's an elite pass rusher. He's an elite pass blocker. He's constantly in top 5 for pressure prevention rate amongst tackles. And position value wise, offensive tackle is the second most valued position on the offense. And the fact he can do a little bit of everything says enough for me to put him at number 7. Number 6, Will Anderson. Will Anderson led the best defense in all of football. He's arguably the best pass rusher all year. He was a first team All-Pro. He placed second in Defensive Player of the Year, and he was the best defensive end in the game. Well, besides one guy we'll get to later. He had a 93.1 Pro Football Focus grade, led all edge defenders, by the way. It was one of the highest grades in the league regardless of position. He had a 91.6 pass rush grade, 4th amongst edge defenders. His run defense grade was 79.8, top 10 amongst edge defenders. He had 93 total pressures, 3rd amongst edge rushers. He had a 26.2 pass rush win rate. He was amongst the top of the league in sacks with 12, 23 quarterback hits, 3 forced fumbles, 20 tackles for a loss, and 1 defensive touchdown. Simply put, when it comes to coming off the edge, when it comes to rushing the passer, when it comes to stopping the run, there's almost no more complete player than Will Anderson Jr. But no, for real, fuck his sisters, bro. This nigga just needs a hug. Number 5, Jeffrey Simmons. I think this is the most underrated player in football. You could argue, if we're talking about positional value, he could be the best player in football. I think this player has always deserved more hype than he's gotten. It's just because he plays on the Tennessee Titans. Jeffrey Simmons had his best statistical year of his career. He had 11 sacks at defensive tackle, 67 tackles, 39 solo, 3 forced fumbles, and he only played 15 games. By the way, he's playing defensive tackle. He had an 88.3 overall Pro Football Focus grade, a 91.4 pass rush grade, which was number 1 amongst interior defenders. And if you consider the fact the only man on defense they're worried about is blocking Jeffrey Simmons, and he still got 11 sacks at a defensive tackle position where you get double teamed most of the time, that's impressive. And it's way more valuable that a defensive tackle gets 10 plus sacks than defensive end or edge, because one, they gets doubled, and it allows you to only rush 4 or even possibly 3. He had the top pass rush win rate amongst defensive tackles. He was a first team All-Pro, and his value this season is just elite. If you get a defense around Jeffrey Simmons, he's gonna be in Defensive Player of the Year conversations. And this is really a hot take if you don't think he should be there. Completely understandable. I just don't think defensive tackles get enough credit, and I especially don't think this guy gets enough credit, because being able to put up these kind of numbers at defensive tackle is insane and absurd, and it makes your value way higher when it comes to a pass rusher. Hence why Aaron Donald won Defensive Player of the Year over TJ Watt, even though he got 13 sacks that season. But like I said, Jeffrey Simmons had 11 sacks, 17 tackles for a loss, 39 solo tackles, 21 quarterback hits, and was just an overall threat on the NFL field. Trade him somewhere, someone's going to pay top dollar for this guy, and he can play some damn good football. But with that being said, the 5th best player in my opinion is Jeffrey Simmons. Number 4, Puka Nacua. Israel, please don't shadow block this video. Puka Nacua is arguably the best player in the league, and he's arguably the best wide receiver in the league. If you have him at number 1, I understand personally. And based off this season, I have him top 2, and I have him as the 4th best player in the league. This guy's been putting up elite production since his rookie year, and in 15 games, he had 1,715 yards, 129 receptions, 10 touchdowns, average 107 receiving yards per game, averages for a career 95.3 receiving yards per game, averaged 10.3 yards per target, was first team All-Pro, and placed number 3 in Offensive Player of the Year. He led the league in receptions, was number 2 in receiving yards, he was top 3 in usage rate, he was the highest graded wide receiver in football, he led the league in contested catches caught with 27, and simply put, if you want him to win short game, he'll do that. If you want him to win deep game, he'll do that. If you want him to win yards after the catch, he can do that. He was one of the best players in the league. I think he could have been argued to be the most valuable player in the league, but his teammate won it, which we'll get to real soon here. And yeah, overall, I just got Puka Nacua number 4 on my list, and the number 2 wide receiver in the league. Who's number 1? Israel's going to be very happy today, because Jackson Smith-Njigba at number 3. Jackson Smith-Njigba. He quite literally had a historical season. On 163 targets, he caught 119 footballs, 1,793 receiving yards, 15.1 yards a reception with 10 touchdowns, averaging 105.5 yards a game. He was first team All-Pro and won Offensive Player of the Year. He was everything for the Seahawks offense, literally. He was the main threat. Everyone tried to stop him, but you simply couldn't this year. He was the best wide receiver in the league, arguably the best player in the league, and he had an absolute historic season. He had a 92.8 overall Pro Football Focus grade, second highest grade amongst wide receivers behind Puka Nacua, number 1 in receiving yards amongst wide receivers, 35.8 target share, which quite literally means the offense of the Seattle Seahawks ran through him, 3.61 yards per route, 73% catch catch rate, 528 yards after the catch, led the league in deep receiving yards at 542, and led the league in deep receptions. Like I said, he was a unanimous first-team All-Pro, Super Bowl champion. He was top 10 in single-season yardage in an NFL season, and he could beat you on all 3 levels. Simply put, I don't want to upset YouTube and I don't want to upset Israel, so I can't put Puka Nacua as the number 1 wide receiver. So the number 1 wide receiver in the league and number 3 player on my list, Jackson Smith-Njigba. Number 2, Matthew Stafford. One of the greatest NFL seasons by a quarterback in recent memory. He never stopped putting up elite production, even through the playoffs. And finally, in his age 37 season, he put it all together. He was the best quarterback in the league. It wasn't even close. He led the Rams to a 12-5 record in 17 games, passed for 4,707 yards leading the league, 65% completion percentage, 46 touchdown passes to 8 interceptions. The efficiency is off the chart with this season, as he averaged 7.8 yards an attempt, 8.82 adjusted yards an attempt, threw for 276.9 yards a game, had a passer rating of 109.2, quarterback rating of 71.2, averaged 7.35 net yards an attempt, and averaged 8.25 adjusted net yards attempt. Like I said, he was first team All-Pro and he won league MVP. He had a 91 Pro Football Focus passing grade, number 1 quarterback by Pro Football Focus WAR. He led the number 1 scoring offense in the league. He was at the most valuable position in the league, and he legitimately did not have a bad game all season. He was top 10 in adjusted net yards attempt and net yards attempt, and simply put, I'd arguably call it the second greatest MVP season since 2022 Patrick Mahomes. If you take into account what he did in the playoffs as well, he never had a bad game, and it really wasn't his fault his team didn't go to the Super Bowl. I got Matthew Stafford as number 2 and the best quarterback of the 2025 season. Number 1, Myles Garrett. I don't think it would have went to anybody else. He's the best player in football. Before this season, I had him number 2. But after this season, he's simply the best player in all of football. The sack record has been held for years, and he broke it this year finally. There's been players to get 22 sacks and tied it at 22.5 sacks with TJ Watt and Michael Strahan, but to become the first player to get 23 sacks and almost have 100 less snaps than the 2 people who were ahead of you is insane. He's the best player in the league. He might go down as the most prolific pass rusher in NFL history. There's no way to stop him. He's the best pass rusher in the league. He's the best run stopper at the position in the league. He's the best defensive end in the league. He's the best player in the league. But that's going to be the end of this video. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll catch y'all boys later. Peace.